Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another bonus episode of Kaiju Weekly, the weekly podcast that introduces you to the wide world of giant monster and giant mech media. I am your host, Travis, and my normal co-host is not here this week because this is a bonus episode we wanted to put out. It's kind of a sequel to the bonus episode that we put out a couple of weeks ago where Michael interviewed a writer and poet, but I am getting a chance to sit down and talk to a couple of awesome writers, the writers of a fantastic comic. I read it and just fell in love with it. It's called MechaTon. We have Dalton K. Shannon and Wells Thompson.
Hello.
How are you
How
guys
you doing, Travis? I'm fantastic.
Just fantastic, yes. On this lovely Monday, clear skies where I'm at anyway.
Yep.
Awesome.
I've got snow on the ground, but other than that, yeah, clear skies.
Oh, snow. I miss snow.
Yeah, I know. Last week it was 70 degrees.
Oh,
it's ridiculous
wow.
in Arkansas.
Oh.
Yeah,
I'm in Tennessee, but yeah, same thing.
I live in Mississippi, in the very southern part of Mississippi. So,
oh, like Hattiesburg or
south of Hattiesburg.
Oh,
I am.
Damn. So it just rains constantly.
Yeah,
it's just hot and rains constantly there. Gotcha.
Hot, rainy, 70 degrees most of the time in the winter time.
Mm-hmm.
It finally got cold last night. It was like 35 degrees, and I was like, wow, we're finally getting our first couple of days of winter, and it's gone already. Okay.
And it's gone.
That's too south.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I lived in Minnesota for a year, so I got used to the snow for about a year, and then I moved back down here to Mississippi. I'm like, I kind of miss the snow. I want to be back up north where it snows.
Yeah, what a culture shock.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
I'm about to move up to Green Bay with my wife, and that's going to be quite the culture shock as well.
Yeah. Going from not having any snow to going up to 6 feet of snow, yeah, it's a shock. And I had to walk to the bus stop to go to school because I was in high school at the time, and I was like, I don't know if I want to walk out in this. I learned very quickly I didn't have the right shoes for walking in the snow.
Oh no.
But we are not here to talk about the weather. We are actually here to talk about MechaTon.
Oh,
no. This podcast can be boring sometimes, but I think spending an hour talking about the weather might be a little too much even for this podcast.
I mean, we could have like kaiju influenced weather. That happens in giant monster movies all the time.
Oh,
yeah.
Dude. Radioactive snows? That'd be great.
The giant storm that Ghidorah created in King of the Monsters from Legendary.
Oh, yes. I'm thinking of Final Wars. What was it? Monster X descended and like the whole planet just went under this massive storm.
Yeah. Oh man. I need to. My friend was watching Final Wars for New Year's, like he was watching it to finish off the year, and I was like, man, that's what I should have done to celebrate New Year's. Watch Final Wars.
What a way to ring in the new year than with Godzilla Final Wars, the most bonkers anime style Godzilla movie of all time. Exactly. Which is saying something considering they've had 3 anime movies that were not near as cool.
Yeah, like the 3 anime movies, nowhere near as anime-ish as the live action Final Wars. But we are here to talk about a comic book that you guys have created called MechaTon. It is a very fantastic book, and I'm just going to let you guys introduce this comic and kind of give us a little overview of what it's about, how it got started, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. MechaTon is a Rule of Cool sci-fi action comic about a glove that falls from space, crashes into the earth, and anything it punches turns into a robot. So that could be a hot dog stand in the first issue, or a house or escalate to all sorts of things. We have a lot of fun stuff in mind, but
punch
right around
anything,
the same
punch everything.
Yes. Right around the same time, giant mutated insects start terrorizing the city, and it's up to the two ding-dongs that find it to put their powers to use and try and save the day.
Yeah, that is a great summation of this book. I read.
I've had practice.
Yeah. Can you tell he was practicing the pitch line? Yeah.
I read it last night. I reread it last night, I should say, because I have the printed copy here, and I was like, man, I just really this book is so far up my alley. You guys don't even know. Like, from the moment that I saw
I would hope
it,
that someone who runs a podcast about kaiju, I was hoping it would be right up your alley. Because if it wasn't up your alley, I don't know what I'm doing.
Then we have missed the mark at
Yes.
that point. If it's not up your alley.
It's like, no, even though I love mechs and I love monsters and I love action, I love comic books, this comic book's not really for me. It's like, what?
Oh,
No.
I'll get out of the game now.
No, it is great. So to kind of introduce yourselves and kind of see where what you guys are bringing to this comic book, I wanted to ask you, what is your experience with like giant monsters, mechs, all this stuff? How did you kind of get into this and become fans?
Well, I guess the logical place to start is birth. I don't remember. I honestly, I honestly can't remember a time that I wasn't aware of Godzilla. Like, that has always pervaded my youth, and I had old VHS copies of terrible monster movies that I would watch on repeat all the time. And thankfully, Ultraman Tiga was also airing on Fox Kids at the time, so I was eating that up. Like, I don't know. It's always been Toku and giant robots. It's always been a part of my life, and we finally have an avenue that I can talk about it and not be weird and not be the one that everyone raises an eyebrow at, because I can finally talk about my love of Toku and giant monsters and everything in between. So yeah, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle choice.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head on why I created this podcast of like, yeah, I can finally talk about this stuff and people won't think I'm weird, or at least the people I'm talking to won't think I'm weird.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, all things considered, you know.
Yeah.
I personally, like, I remember as a kid, I don't remember actually watching Power Rangers ever, but I definitely did, because I had like Power Rangers costumes and like a bunch of toys and stuff. So it definitely entered my life at some point, even if I remember literally none of it. But I sort of came about this in a roundabout way, I guess. Like, I love the giant monster aspect from like other genres, like cosmic horror. I really enjoy that kind of, like, you know, giant unknowable terror. And that sort of seeped into like the logical next step of doing a lighthearted, family-friendly-ish version of that is kaiju. Along with just, I generally enjoy some kaiju media. I wouldn't call myself a fan. If anything, I'm a convert. Like, Dalton was just like, "This is what we're doing," and I was like, "All right, yeah, that works." I can see you're passionate about it, and I think it's you know, pretty hype, all things considered. It's a cool concept, so let's do it.
Yeah. So would I be wrong in saying that Dalton kind of brought the kaiju and mech side of things, and maybe you brought in the comic book side of things, or was it all on Dalton's side?
In fact, Dalton was the one who brought me into comics in general. I was like, I've written several short stories, I've written a novel. That was sort of the trajectory that my career was headed on. And then I met Dalton, and we started, you know, talking about stuff. And more I was just like, I really want to work with this guy. And I think we, you know, our head is in the right place, and we started working on comics. We started having success in that. and he brought me into the comic world. I think what I bring to the table is meticulous plotting and character interactions and like just sort of I don't know, story growth, I guess. Not to say that he doesn't know how to tell a story, but we both bring very different things to the story and make it a lot stronger as a result.
Wells keeps the wheels on the cart, and I make sure the cart is going as fast as possible.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I like that analogy.
I remember we had an extended argument in another script that we've been writing for the last, 6 years. And it still comes up as an argument whether or not a submarine should explode when it runs into a giant squid. And there's, that I think just encapsulates the heart of our opposing ethos. Is Dalton says yes, it needs to explode because it's cool and it's cathartic, and I'm like, there's no reason in the world why that submarine explodes, and you know it. And he's like, but it's cool.
Hey, realism doesn't necessarily need to apply when you're dealing with comic book logic.
If Toby
not
has
always.
Taught me anything.
Sometimes, not always.
Yeah. There's a time and place for every explosion.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even Star Wars had the Death Star explode with sound and everything in space. So, sometimes the flashiness of it adds to the story more than the realism.
This is true.
I'm on Dalton's side, if you can't tell.
You're on Dalton's side. Yeah, no, well, you haven't.
We'll make a Twitter poll.
I was going to say, I think you need the context of the story to understand why it's a bad idea. But I made other concessions. He got some cool stuff in that comic that I wasn't necessarily on board with at first. Don't worry. It's a give and take, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of cool moments and explosions in MechaTon that Wells is more than happy to just be like, yeah, let it happen.
Yeah.
Because this is the kind of comic that needs those moments.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And talking about MechaTon specifically now, I really enjoyed reading it. Like I said, I reread it last night just to kind of refresh myself on it and remind myself, and it's really a fantastic read. What were some of your inspirations for this book in particular?
Ooh.
Well, every giant robot show under the sun, Toku in general has always been a huge inspiration. But we always there's just that cool visual of One Punch, and it turns it actualizes everything like that. It really started with the glove, and then the story was kind of built around the glove. And Wells brought in a whole lot of the theming that was built around that, and we started talking about the possibilities of what the glove can do, and it all of those influences stem from just this desire to actualize passion, I guess, like that all of that stuff, from Toku to anime to superheroes and comic books, it's all in this. And I don't know, I like to think the influences are right there on the cover and kind of bleed into the pages. You almost come away with your fingers a little dirty from how soaked they are.
Yeah, I think there were obvious points of reference, like Gurren Lagann is Dalton's favorite show of all time, and I think that moment where I forget everyone's name in that show, but where the guy with the glasses stands up and declares himself a paragon of masculinity is I think Dalton's been chasing that high as a writer ever since, just trying to capture that moment. For me, this is a little bit my love letter to Scott Pilgrim,
Nice.
which was that was the comic that got me into comics. It was also the movie that got me into movies. That one bit of media has like had such a big impact on my own personal tastes and like going forward ever since in 2010. Just
Yeah, and it's
beautiful.
funny you say Scott Pilgrim, because I do, and I know, I don't know how involved you guys were with the actual art process of creating the characters and stuff, or how much you let your artists kind of make those decisions, but I did get a very Brian O'Malley kind of feel to the art style.
Oh yeah, Fernando's fantastic.
Yeah, Fernando, you can tell like he didn't come out of a vacuum or anything, but I haven't really seen anything that looks exactly like his work, which is cool. I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there's definitely a little bit of like that, like just a touch of that manga influence that gives it a lot of flavor.
It's manga anime with like a pop punk drive and energy behind it, which I am all about.
Yeah,
for sure.
I was as I was reading it, and like Wells, like you said, that and really it's true of any story, there's that they're not created in a vacuum, so of course you're going to have your influences very upfront there. You're going to see sometimes they're a little more hidden, but this is definitely, like you guys said, is dripping with your influences. And so as I was reading it, and not to say that you guys are stealing any ideas or anything, just to the influences that I can see in it as I'm reading it, it's definitely got like a MECHS XLR feel to it.
Oh yeah. What's funny is I forgot that show existed. We made this comic. We got, I think, all the way to either the end of like the campaign or as we were, starting to distribute it. And someone was like, "Yeah, this reminds me a lot of MECHS XLR." And like the floodgates opened, and I remembered everything about that show. And I was like, "How did I not see that this is the same thing?"
Yeah, well, but it shows how influential that can be, that it's like subconsciously kind of seeping into your writing and the story. I also got a lot of like, and I guess I'm getting a lot of Cartoon Network vibes from it, because I was thinking MECHS XLR, Generator X. I was like, I was picking up a lot of these cartoon old, not old, but like mid 2000s, early 2000s Cartoon Network vibes from it.
Yeah.
When they tell me to put down my mother's maiden name for the security question on the bank, I usually put Cartoon Network. That's the extent to which I was raised by that particular channel.
I know a lot of creators who are very subtle with their influences, and they're all cowards. You have to wear it on your sleeve.
No, totally, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like it really, it like we said, no story is created in a vacuum, and I am a firm believer that art inspires art. So taking stories that already existed, taking art and using that as a jumping off point, using that as an inspiration to create something new and exciting.
100%.
Yeah, and you guys did that, definitely did that. So I feel the inspirations there. Like I said, Generator X and MECHS XLR. I definitely feel the Scott Pilgrim vibes in there. I definitely, when you said Gurren Lagann, I was like, oh yeah, I can see that, because I've only read the first issue so far, but I can already imagine just how Gurren Lagann just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It like starts off with a tiny robot, and then it gets a bigger robot, and then the whole planet is a robot, and then the whole galaxy is a robot. And it's just like, yeah, I can see where this story is kind of leading in that direction. It kind of starts off as a
hey, spoilers.
Well, you guys already mentioned how like it starts off in this first issue as a hot dog cart, and then you get a house. And so I'm excited to see where you go and how you build and get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the exciting things, and one of the things we're trying to keep a little bit loose, like moving forward. We want that spontaneity of like, well, what in this situation would make the best mech? What's around? What can he, cobble together? I think that's always fun. I never like to too rigidly, structure something that in its very core is meant to be very free and open and sort of wants to be experiential, wants to be spontaneous.
Yeah, and we have to put Fernando through his paces. Like he has to draw every robot under the sun.
I do worry constantly in all of our projects. So, like, are we putting too much on our artists? Like, we are asking a lot of them. And so far, they've really, we haven't had any terrible experiences with artists being like, God, you're asking way too much of me. It's like, no, they love it.
Yeah. A lot of them will rise to the challenge. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
So when I was reading it again last night, I noticed that the tone here, and we talked about inspiration, but the tone in this book seems very family friendly. Is that something that you guys planned ahead of time, or was it just something that came about naturally? How did you guys come to the tone that's in the book?
It's definitely a conscious effort.
Yeah. Mechaton's always been about family.
Yeah. It's sort of just the subject matter lent itself to it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of factors. We could have... definitely we could have leaned a little bit more heavily into, like, being a young adult and made it a little bit more crass and just sort of played to an older audience. But the themes that were present and the sort of way that the story was headed felt a lot more all ages to us. And the other part of that equation being we do have other books that we're planning on making and that we have made that do have a more adult bent to them. So it felt nice to have that variety in there so that we could introduce, if a kid approaches us at the booth, we can very calmly hand him MECHATon without thinking, oh, the parents are going to kill us.
That's
Which,
nice.
When your other properties are like a horror anthology and coming soon, Frankenstein kills the universe, essentially. That's not really. That bends itself to a particular audience that we might be missing otherwise. So it helps.
You get typecast, man.
I mean, and hey, maybe leaning into one specific audience is the better call, but we like having something for everyone. So.
No, I totally see where you're coming from with that, and I love all ages books. When I'm reading my comics, I tend to, even though I'm a 30-something-year-old man now, I still lean more towards the all ages books because it just for some reason they seem to resonate with me in their style and in their tones and their characterizations more than some of the more adult oriented books, because I'm not a person who really likes a lot of gory violence in my media. So I tend to lean towards more all ages stuff. But that's not to say that there's not really a lot of depth there. In fact, when I was reading MECHATon, I did notice that there was some depth, even in this just in this first issue. There was some depth of real life kind of peeking through all the kind of sci-fi craziness. Not to spoil too much from the book, because, well, I can't really spoil that much. I only have the first issue. But some of the characters are dealing with real world problems, not having enough money, not having a job, losing their job, things like that. So with that in mind, I wanted to ask, did you guys plan on putting those kind of more realistic themes in there? And what other challenges along those lines are you planning for the future for these characters?
I think the first draft or two of MECHATon, that was not present. It moved a lot. Like, the story moved a lot quicker. There wasn't nearly as much time to sort of develop those sort of human problems within the group. And to me, it felt a lot less satisfying because of that. So when I took the reins on the the newest draft, which is kind of what we see now, that was something that I moved to the forefront. Was I wanted people to be facing real world problems and sort of have to deal with them both collaboratively and have small failures out of them, and that not to necessarily be the main driver behind the book, but allow that to add stakes and humanize the characters a bit, make them feel a lot more like, yeah, this is what I would do in this situation, rather than just operating purely on the level of, oh, this is cool.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but
right. Yeah, some problems you can punch away with a giant robot, and some you can't, and they're both worth exploring, and they're both fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going back to that Cartoon Network kind of influence, I mean, it's a more modern show, but I always think of Steven Universe and how Steven Universe is a show that's obviously meant for young kids, but then when you stop and look at some of the things that the characters have to deal with, loss of loved ones and coming out from the under the shadow of your parents and dealing with, you know, your heroes not being who you expected them to be. It's like, it's very adult themes and dealing with depression and things like that. And it's like, and this is a kids show. So I love how you guys have been able to interweave those kind of elements in here, even though it's still a sci-fi action. It's still fun. It's still exciting. You still have those elements of, yeah, these are realistic people and they're going to deal with real world problems.
Yeah.
All the best kids media I find, and by kids I mean really all ages, never talks down, and they always speak to the kid that's still inside you with and still teaching a lesson at the same time. Like, all the worst of it is just like prattle, and all the best of it is exciting, and once it makes you remember what it was like to be a kid without blinders, in a sense. And that's what I think that's what we're trying to do with MechaTon anyway.
Yeah.
I want to think that's what we're doing.
For sure. And then on the opposite, like from the kids' perspective, you like, even back then, you could always tell when you were kind of being spoken down to.
Yeah.
When you were being told, like, hey, here's what you need to learn from this. And whether you're a kid or you're an adult, I always prefer when sort of, if you want to say, the moral is smuggled in to the story rather than explicitly, just said to you. I know that's giving Dalton an aneurysm because a lot of my first draft reads a little bit like that, but
we iron that out. It's good.
But that's what a first draft is for, right?
Right,
so
exactly.
that you can make a second draft. No, but I that's one of the things I like about MechaTon is like, people will pick it up because it looks cool, and then my hope is that by the end of it they'll walk away and go, oh wow, I felt emotions. I didn't expect that.
Yeah. And I think it was Wells you were talking about earlier about the characterizations and the character interactions. That's what I wanted to talk about. How has it been writing these character reactions or interactions? I mean, because you have this really great foundation of the two main characters being siblings and kind of interacting in a way that siblings would. They get on each other's nerves, but there's also that love that you can feel between them. How has that been? And how have you approached that? I guess I can say, what inspirations kind of brought you, or have you drawn when you're writing these character interactions like this? Do you have siblings? Are you pulling from your own real life experiences, or yeah?
We both do have brothers. I have older brothers. Dalton has a younger brother. So we know what it's like to be, in that sort of sibling relationship. But I think I just needed, like, a lot of the dialogue just comes from an outlet of things that I don't know how to say it other than, like, just the way people talk to each other, in that a lot of times people are sort of playfully mean, and they're operating on the level of subtext, and it helps a lot when you have that foundation of, well, they're related, they've lived together forever, they know each other inside and out, so when they say mean things to each other, there's an understanding there. Other than that, it is somewhat informed as well by, like, the relationship I have with my wife. Don't read too much into that. But no, but just, like, the way we talk to each other, and the fact that the other thing that's she is a little sister, so I can watch the way she talks to her brother. And also, one thing that she carried from being a little sister is, to this day, she still likes to watch people play video games.
Mm-hmm.
Like she'll watch like a let's play, like a long let's play of Majora's Mask every year, just as a comfort thing. And 9 times out of 10, when like she buys a game or she wants to play a game, what she's saying is, I want you to play the game and I want to watch you do it. We're actually playing Resident Evil Village right now, so that's fun.
That is something that speaks to me on a spiritual level, because I didn't have siblings, but I definitely had cousins and friends who were much better at playing games than I was. So I tended to just like, okay, here's the controller, you just play. And then even to this day,
Yeah.
I don't play games as much as I just enjoy sitting and watching people play.
Right. And that was sort of the foundation of the relationship that I had in my head when I wanted to, like, there's a reason that we introduce Derek and Leah, and Derek's playing a video game and Leah's pointing out, who to shoot and how not to die.
Right.
She, it's that sort of backseat gamer mentality where they have each other's back and they get on each other's nerves, but they, at the end of the day, they kind of need each other.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, and I mean, I was always writing it because, me and my brother have these same interactions all the time. And it was really cool to like turn that backseat gamer mentality into like an actual robot slugfest, because now Leah gets to watch through her phone as Derek screws up and tries to make sure he doesn't get killed, as she's that eye in the sky keeping him safe. And it's, I don't,
Yeah.
See, that backseat gamer thing I never experienced because I was the older brother, so I've never felt that. And it was really fascinating when Wells brought it to the table, because I'd never thought of it, and exploring it with this in mind and with context has really strengthened the book and made the sibling connection even stronger.
Yeah, you can definitely tell in this book that sibling relationship is there. It feels real, and I felt like it came from a real place because it felt very realistic. So that's why I wanted to ask kind of your inspirations behind that, because there's plenty of media out there where you'll have siblings and the siblings don't interact the way that siblings do.
That drives me crazy.
Yeah.
The number one thing that takes me out of a story is when someone, like, you need to introduce a couple of characters and they're a brother and sister, and so one will very obviously say something like little brother or bro or something like that, and it doesn't feel organic at all. It's like,
right.
I don't call my brother, I don't call Turner and go, hey brother. I go, hey douchebag, what's up? Like,
right.
I'm immediately going for the throat. Like,
there's always a level of playful ribbing going on that is really I won't even say underexplored. It's just not explored, period. That needs to be there for siblings to feel like siblings.
Yeah, and listeners to this podcast will have no idea what we're talking about when we're talking about playful meanness. It's not like me and my co-host are constantly tearing into each other in fun ways.
I mean, that's just how a lot of people interact, like,
especially friends too.
And some people, that's the way they talk to other people in general, and generally they're not fun to be around for very long, but that is a mode of communication that I don't feel like is extremely well explored, which is weird because it makes a lot of sense as a writer to write people that way. Like, you're just building conflict into the patterns of speech. It's not even difficult to derive things from that. But for some reason, everyone talks like the same.
Yeah. One thing I noticed talking about the relationship between Leah and Derek, the sibling relationship there is it's very different than you might get in some other kids programs, because I noticed that in a lot of kids programming, they like to make the sibling relationship very antagonistic. And this is like antagonistic to a point, but obviously they still work together and they still work well together, like you said, because they know each other so well. And I think that you guys in your writing found a great balance there between that just enough antagonistic, because like you said, that's just how some people interact with each other, but not going so far to be like the older sister is the bad guy of the of the story, or the younger brother is the bad guy.
Yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, speaking as an older brother, it's a very real thing that you can love someone with all your heart while still hating their stupid guts.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. And there is obviously a foundation where some antagonism can come into play, but the heart of the story is definitely that sibling relationship, and the fact that they do love each other and they do bring out the best in each other. And part of the fun that I have thinking about the future of the story is exploring what happens when some of those elements go away and how the characters are affected by that. But yeah, no, I same as you, I'm the youngest sibling, so I always see really, really antagonistic brother relationships or brother sister relationships, and I'm like, I mean, kind of, but not really.
Right.
It's
like taking one
it's
element
more subtle
of
than that. It's more nuanced than that.
Right, exactly. It's taking one element of a very complex relationship and just focusing on that one element. It's like, no, but relationships are more complicated than that.
Yeah.
I did want to just kind of ask you guys some questions about, because I'm really fascinated, and you guys can go into as much or as little detail as you want, because I don't want to get into too personal with how you guys work together, but I'm really fascinated.
The answer is yes. Dalton does have a body pillow. Dalton 100% has a body pillow.
I have a friend who made a Final Wars Gigan body pillow that she is selling. That
okay. What's the Etsy link?
Yeah. Okay. Add to cart now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to.
No, that's totally fine. But no, I am really fascinated by this collaborative work that you guys have been doing. Because this is obviously a very collaborative piece. This isn't just one person's vision. So how do you guys work together, and how did you guys work together when creating MECHATon specifically?
So basically, it starts with an arena. Both of us enter, and
one man leaves.
One man leaves with the other's face, so that the one who wins drives the story, but also carries parts of the other with them. That's generally how we flip-flop, yeah.
It's a horrifying and yet accurate metaphor.
Hey, Face Off is an underrated gem.
Oh god. So, yeah, our writing process kind of starts with one of us has an idea and the other says that's stupid, and then the other says no, I think it's actually kind of cool, and then we fight about it for a little while, and if we agree that it's good, then generally the person who had the idea will write the first draft. It's not a hard rule, but it does happen like that quite a bit. And then the other person will kind of read over it and go, okay, here's what I think needs to change. And they'll, from scratch, write the second draft most of the time.
The submarine does not explode. Here's my note.
Yeah. And then we just toss it back and forth and build on it until we get to a point where we go, okay, I think that, maybe some dialogue change, some adjustments to dialogue could happen, but I think this is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then we, from that point, just make minor tweaks and move forward with it. But it's a kind of fully respecting the other's autonomy within the story up to a point. And usually the person who starts it will have final say and be like, okay, well, we're divided on this, so I'm going to lean this way. Sorry. And then the other person gets their chance to do it later. So
gotcha.
I typically take the reins on MECHATON. Our next project is a Conan the Barbarian style horror action bloodfest, and Dalton is more than happy to take the reins on that one. I know. So
Yeah. A lot of the times it feels like we're both sitting at a pottery wheel trying to build up a vase and making minor adjustments as it goes. Sometimes one person will completely smush the vase back down to just putty and we have to build again. But at the end of it, hopefully we have a vase that looks like a vase, or maybe something that looks like a cup. A lot of the times it gets phallic, but it eventually becomes a vase.
No, and particularly with MECHATON, it got to a point where it was almost a little frustrating, just because we had like somewhat different visions for the story, but what we found was that neither was entirely correct, and when we kind of made it together and worked our vision for the story together, it was better than either of us individually making it. So so it takes work, but it is worth it. It's
creative
like having
like marriage.
Yeah. A little like that. I was gonna say it's like having an editor that will also jump in and take ownership. And that is somewhat combative, but also very right. It's very healthy for the story.
Like a sibling relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's interesting because different people collaborate in different ways. So I was really interested in hearing how you guys work together and what your workflow was like when writing this book and writing other books. So you guys used Kickstarter to help fund MECHATON. So I wanted to ask, how was that experience, and what has been your biggest takeaway from getting to self-publish essentially this book and creating this book completely on your own?
Comics is hard. That's my biggest takeaway.
Comics will break your heart, kid.
Oh man. Oh boy. No, it's a harrowing experience for sure. Crowdfunding is not for the faint of heart.
No.
But really rewarding. And we found a wave of enthusiasm for the book, both among people we know and people we had never met. We gained a bit of a following and a bit of an audience through crowdfunding, which was really satisfying. It was, as I said, a lot of work, and we made a lot of mistakes, and are hoping that we just do slightly better on the next one. But I mean, if nothing else, it just teaches you how the business works. It's only us. We have to hire all of the artists and letterers and colorists, and then print the thing, ship the thing. I never thought I would have this intimate an understanding of the USPS, but
right. Yeah.
No, yeah. Kickstarter just seems like this personification of like that art truism where making the art is not the hard part. It's getting seen and getting people to actually pay attention to the art you're making. And Kickstarter is just that personified, and it's been quite a learning curve, honestly. And navigating the internet and social media in this new age of comics is like the old rules don't work anymore, and
right.
Here's how you have to find your own way now, and Kickstarter allows that, but it's also still very hard.
Yeah, if you've ever listened to like, I don't know, Chris Claremont or someone from that era of comic book making, like, describe how they got into the business, it is such an alien thing now. It's like, well, you move to New York City, and then you work as an intern at Marvel for a little while, and then it's like, what? How? No, that's not how any of this works anymore.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it is refreshing sometimes to see actual established long time comic book creators still kind of needing to go to the crowdfunding way to fund their own books, and it's like, you know, it kind of makes you feel a little bit like, oh, okay, I'm on the same level as like as a Terry Moore, as some of these other ones who are
I'm on the same level as a Scott Snyder, minus about $100,000 in funding, but you know, other than that, we're basically the same.
Exactly. No, as someone who currently has a Kickstarter running for a magazine, because we part of the podcast, we were able to spin off a kaiju based magazine that we do quarterly.
Plug.
Yeah, and we've been publishing. Everyone who listens to, if you're used to listening to the podcast, you know we talk about Kaiju Ramen a lot. We've been doing it for a year now, but we're doing our collected edition, that's volume 1, that has everything all together in one volume, that we've done so far. And yeah, you forget that Kickstarter is its own social media platform, and you have to treat it, even though it's a crowdfunding website and crowdfunding place, it almost acts and behaves like a social media platform, like a Twitter or like a I don't know, Facebook or a TikTok. I don't know a lot of social medias, but it does kind of behave that way. So navigating that, I completely appreciate what you guys are saying about the challenges of Kickstarter.
Oh, I had no idea there was a Kickstarter going for this magazine. I'm on the page right now. This is dope. You have somebody pledging right now as we speak.
Nice.
If nothing else, this interview has been a success in that regard.
It has been a success,
but now we're calling on your help in January for Kickstarter number 2.
Yeah, no, right. Finding ways to reach out to people and make them even aware that you have a Kickstarter is a massive battle, let alone, you know, convincing them to click the pledge button.
Right.
Yeah, and all you can really do in that regard, in my opinion. Yeah. It's like there's for sure people who you know, are into the kinds of things that our comic is about. It's just finding a way to get it in front of them. And as far as I'm concerned, we've done everything we need to do to get them to like click the pledge button, in that we have an incredible artist in Fernando, and Meg is a great colorist, and the letters pop, and like the page looks good. The art style looks fantastic. And I think we've done our job as writers to make the story engaging and give people what they want and also a little bit of what they need, without realizing it. The hard part is literally just getting people to the page, right, and getting people to see it and get excited about it.
Yeah, and don't undersell the importance of the pitch, because the art is fantastic, the colors and everything are great, and the story itself is great. But what sold me on the Kickstarter and why I pledged and why I supported MECHATon was that pitch. Because when I read the pitch of it's a family friendly kind all ages story about giant robots and fighting aliens and everything, I was like, okay, this is me. This is my aesthetic. I am going to click on this and support this as quick as possible.
Well, I'm glad it works then.
Yeah.
Hopefully our trailer for the second Kickstarter will draw just as many eyes, if not raised eyebrows.
Yeah. And
yeah,
now
there's some stuff going on in that trailer.
So that leads into my next question. What can we look forward to in future installments of MECHATon? What do you guys have planned? And I know you don't want to reveal all of your secrets, but give us something.
More robots.
I was going to say bigger robots, meaner bugs, family drama, cooler characters. We've got, in addition to the sibling relationship, we also have a partner for Leah, who we alluded to in the first issue. They had a conversation over the phone, but they have a really crazy aesthetic that's super fun to play around with. And eventually an alien comes to Earth and possibly joins the team. We'll see.
Nice.
But if things feel crazy right now, then wait until like the end of the first arc and beyond, because it only gets weirder and more insane from here.
Yeah, when flying saucers start raining down, you're just gonna have to punch them away.
Yeah. I mean,
Life's a game. Stunt it.
Well, I am really excited to see what you guys have planned and what comes about in future installments of MechaTon. So for anybody who, after listening to this, is interested in checking out maybe the first issue of MechaTon and is interested in supporting future installments, where can they go to find all of that?
The first thing you can do is, if you just want MechaTon right now, you don't want to worry about Kickstarter at the moment. You want to, get the first issue and see if you're on board before you like commit to the second issue or anything like that. Go to gumroad.com. And I'm pretty sure you can look up MechaTon. You can find my page, which is app.gumroad.com/Wells SRT, WELLSSRT. That will take you to a page with with many options for MechaTon: a digital copy, a signed copy, a physical copy, and some stickers. And if you go on the site before the Kickstarter starts, which is on the 13th, January 13th, and use the code too many twos. The number 2 is twice in there, so number 2 many number 2 S. You'll take $2 off every copy, so including the digital. So it's only $1 for the digital copy with that code. So if you want to get on cheap, that's your best bet. If you're looking forward to number 2, it will be available on Kickstarter on the 13th. Of January and run for the next month, so it should be ending, I think, on the 15th of February or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere around there. And there you will be able to buy the first issue as well. Other than that, you can always find updates on our Twitter, on which my Twitter is @WellsThomp, THOMP.
And at Dalton K Shannon, and we between the two of us, we get the marketing through. We try to anyway.
God, we try. But yeah, those are the best ways to find it at the moment. I might make a Ko-fi, I don't know, one of those in the future, and have that available as well. But at the moment, those are your best ways to get MechaTon.
Nice. Yeah, and I will make sure to include all of the links to where people can go and check it out and everything in the description of this episode. And for people who are listeners, longtime listeners of Kaiju Weekly, if you follow us on social media, you will see us tweeting out about MechaTon issue 2 when the Kickstarter launches. We will be sharing that around because this is a project. This is something that I truly am excited about. I'm not just putting that on because I have you guys on as a guest, but I am actually truly excited to read more and see what happens in the story. So definitely, listeners.
Yeah.
And definitely check it out.
That means a lot. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if it was manufactured enthusiasm, I'd still take it.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, as someone who has done the rounds of interviewing with people for my Kickstarter, I'm like, yeah, no, I'll take the manufactured stuff, but it always means more when it's genuine.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, and this really does fit into the aesthetic of this podcast. We cover mech stuff. We are, in fact, we mentioned Gurren Lagann. Gurren Lagann is on our schedule to review on this podcast later on this year.
Yeah.
Every May we do a lot of mech themed things, so we always have a Mecha May. So we're going to be covering a lot of mech things. We even covered a comic book. I think 2 years ago we covered Mech Cadet U, which was a Boom Studios.
Ooh, great book.
Yeah, really fantastic book. So, and this
very cool. Have you covered Homesick Pilots, out of curiosity?
Not yet, but I have that on my list. I haven't read it yet, but I do want to check it out.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, definitely
I've
check it out. It's
heard
really
good
good.
things about it. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, and I do want to check it out. So listeners to this podcast, this is something that I definitely believe fits into the aesthetic. If you like this podcast and you like some of the stuff that we do, you'll like MechaTon. Go check it out. Like we said, we'll include all the links and everything in the description. And yeah, I think that's all the questions I
Absolutely.
have. Is there anything that you guys want to
Sure.
share? I'll leave this last couple of minutes of this episode to you guys to share whatever you want to share.
I don't think we ever talked about the kaiju in the first issue, so I'll just bring up it's a giant roach,
Yeah.
and he sprints onto the first page that he's actually on board, confused and angry and destroying things, and I love him. He's a big huggable dope.
With a gross power level.
I do love that you guys include like the stats and like the power levels and everything for the characters and for the monsters.
Yeah.
It's really great.
That's so much fun. We need to go back to that of like having, baseball card stats, but they're just like the twist that we put on it is that they're all relative and meaningless.
Yeah,
so, like power level gross.
Which, if it's if it may be too early to, I may be spoiling something, but the Kickstarter is gonna include trading cards.
That's true. We are gonna have trading cards if you guys are fans of that kind of retro stuff. Trading cards, absolutely. Yeah. And if I can plug one more thing really quickly, related to the Kickstarter. If you guys are listening to this before it launches on the 13th, hopefully a link will be included where you can go and follow the pre-launch page. Just click a button that says notify me on launch. That helps us so much, like more than you know. Really, really helps generate enthusiasm, helps give the Kickstarter the idea that, maybe we should feature this thing. And could ultimately be the difference between us being noticed and or struggling for relevance. So if you're excited about the project, please hit that notify me on launch button.
Yeah, definitely. And we look forward to, like we said, MECHATon #2 and future projects. I know you hinted at some of the future projects that you guys are working on, and when you guys get around to doing those, we'll have you back on to talk about those because they feel like they fit right into our aesthetic here on the podcast too. So
it's possible. We have 5 Kickstarters planned for 2022. 3 of which are issues of MECHATon, 2 of which we'll reveal on a later date.
Nice. Well, I really enjoyed having this conversation with you guys. I really enjoyed talking to you guys about a comic book that was a lot of fun to read, and I'm so happy that you guys came on as guests.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you so much for having us.
Loved it.
Yeah, and for listeners, if this is your first time checking out Kaiju Weekly, this isn't a normal episode. Normally we do our main episodes, but this is a bonus episode. Like I said, it's kind of a sequel to the bonus episode we did a couple of weeks ago, just kind of interviewing people in the giant monster monster sci-fi community and creators and getting kind of their talking about their creations and stuff. We always want to highlight creators in the community, and so that's what this is. But you can check out the main episodes in our feed. We're going to be covering movie reviews and kaiju news and all kinds of stuff. If you want to follow us, you can follow us on social media at Kaiju Weekly. If you want to check out Kaiju Ramen Magazine, you can check out kaijuRamenmedia.com. We changed our domain name recently, but if you follow kaijuramenmagazine.com, it goes to the same source. So either one of those domains, either one of those websites, it goes to the same place. And follow everything that Kaiju Weekly is doing, like I said, on social media. And we will be back in our next episode to talk about all of the news and everything that's been happening, because we have so much fantastic kaiju content coming up in 2022. MECHATon is included in all of that. So we're looking forward to it. And so until next time, we're going to say help control. This is my sign off, just so you guys are aware. Help control the giant roach population. Have your mech gloves spayed or neutered.